Nowadays, it's not uncommon to turn on your television or go to social media platforms and witness Black people insisting that we are no longer being oppressed by what oppressive forces. And they're also declaring that it's ourselves that are now our own worst enemies. But are these Black people correct? Absolutely not. But that's precisely what many of us have been deliberately manipulated to think. The truth of the matter is that although most Black people no longer experience the same type of oppression tactics as our ancestors experienced it, we are in fact still being oppressed. When the blatant oppressive tactics used in the past against Black people became no longer socially acceptable with the changing times and also resulted in unprecedented unified Black protest, the white oppressors did not abandon those oppression tactics. They merely reinvented them with much more sophistication. Unlike the blatant oppression tactics that Black people could easily identify and then therefore develop counter strategies to overcome them, the modern tactics now being used are not easily recognized nor easily comprehended by most of us Black victims. The methods used today are so sophisticated and so covert that they allow white oppressive forces to continue oppressing Black people while simultaneously manipulating millions of Black people to perceive ourselves as being our own worst enemies and to insist that we're not being oppressed. These current oppressive tactics are as followed: manufactured consent to mistreat, demoralize, divide, and rule, gaslighting, psychological warfare, abuse. And they also withhold most Black racially affirming facts from us throughout our entire educational development, because this conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, subordinate identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance and social capital over us. Our ignorance of these modern oppression tactics is the white oppressor's greatest weapon being used against Black people. The oppression of Black people always works best when the Black victims no longer recognizes how it works. Because these oppression tactics are so sophisticated and so covert, they allow white oppressive forces to continue oppressing Black people while misleading millions of us to believe that we're no longer being oppressed. Those that are now insisting that we are no longer being oppressed are in fact thinking exactly as they've been intentionally manipulated to think. They're the group deliberately socially engineered by white oppressive forces to make up what is called the Black buffer zone class. These Black people are referred to as the Black buffer zone class because they act as a buffer between the white society and the Black society. The Black buffer class benefits the white society because nowadays, before the Black masses can even confront the system of white supremacy, we're forced to have to first fight against these buffer Black people that have been brainwashed to defend it. It's a role that buffer zone Black people perform that helps the system of white supremacy run smoothly and without changes. However, these buffer zone Black people are unaware that they've been brainwashed to think as they now do. They think it's of their own free will, but it's not. These buffer class, they're comprised of a segment of the Black population that have become so heavily demoralized by the white society's unrelenting, fraudulent negative depiction of our racial group that they literally become hateful towards their own racial group. The constant Black racially demoralizing humiliation caused these Black people to perceive our own racial group as being the bad people and to perceive our oppressors as being the good ones. They therefore now go out of their way to try to show the white society that we're not all bad. Their minds have been programmed to always try to win the approval and validation of the white society. White oppressive forces have developed a sophisticated method used for controlling black people. And those of us who know the truth are trying to free your mind from a mental prison that you don't even know you're trapped within.